Shalom, I'm Moreh Matan, and welcome to this week's Moreh Minute. Before we begin today, I just want to thank all of you for your prayers. I had tested positive about a week and a half ago for COVID-19. I get to break quarantine in 2 days, so I'm very excited about that. And that is why I'm filming this in our RV, which is parked next to our house and not in my office, because I am still in quarantine. So thank you for your prayers. Thankfully, I didn't have to go to the hospital. I didn't have any major symptoms, and I'm feeling so much better. So thank you again. This week, our Torah portion is called Vayeshev. And we get into the story of Joseph, the sale of Joseph by his brothers, Joseph and Potiphar's wife, the dreams that he had, all this amazing narrative that begins in this Torah portion and goes all the way through the end of the book of Genesis. Now, specifically, I want to talk about two things that are a direct result of the sale of Joseph by his brothers. Now, we know the original idea was to kill Joseph, but they were convinced not to kill him, but rather to throw him in a pit and just leave him there for dead. Now, we learn from the story that the reason they put him in a pit rather than to kill him is that one of the brothers secretly wanted to come back and rescue him. But as some Ishmaelites were coming by, they sold him to the Ishmaelites, who in turn sold him to some Midianites that were going down into Egypt. Now, what's interesting is the sages tell us that it's interesting we have a description of sweet-smelling things that these Midianites were carrying, because usually they were carriers of things like kerosene and turpentine, things that did not smell very good. But the Lord had this in mind for them to be having an unusual cargo at this time, so that the righteous Joseph would not have to have an unpleasant smell as he was being taken down into Egypt. I think that is a beautiful thought. Something very similar is said about Moses later, that the basket he was put in was not coated with tar and pitch on the inside and outside as Noah's Ark was, but only on the outside, so that baby Moses wouldn't have to smell such an offensive odor as he was inside the basket. The sages tell us that Joseph is 17 years old at this time, and that he is very good looking, and this is why he gets into the issue with Potiphar's wife. But before we get there, let's look at the price that Joseph was sold for. It says that he was sold for 20 pieces of silver. Now, if we do the math, we realize that he is sold for 5 shekels. And since he is the firstborn of his mother Rachel, this is why the redemption of the firstborn, the ceremony known as Pidyon Haben, where someone who is firstborn in the family, the firstborn male, is redeemed with 5 shekels. This is why, because this is the equivalent of these 20 pieces of silver. It equals out to be 5 shekels. Now, something that's interesting is that since each of the brothers would have put in 2 coins, if we count up the 10 brothers, they each put in 2 coins to come up with these 20 coins. Each of them gave an equivalent of a half shekel. And this is why later on the Jewish people are told to give the half shekel temple tax. It all goes back to the sale of Joseph. You know, there are many things in Jewish history that the sages look back on and say the reason this happened is because we sold our brother Joseph. It is so interesting to me the way that history is intertwined with the present and even with the future. All of these things can point back to the sale of Joseph. Isn't it interesting that the redemption of the firstborn for 5 shekels and the half shekel temple tax goes all the way back to the sale of brother Joseph? If you'd like to learn more with me, you can jump into my Kosher Pastor program. You can fill out an application by going to kosherpastor.com. Or if you are in Africa or of African descent, go to af.shuvu.tv and sign up for the Uri program there. Thank you once again for joining with me. Thank you for praying for me and my family. Here is wishing you good health and shalom.